Hello friends, it's Kayla. This is my September wrap up. I read a lot of things. They didn't all fit in my basket. Should I count them? Does anyone care? Oh, now it looks so empty up there. Maybe I'll put the books back as I talk about them. Some of them really don't need much discussion. Some of them are literally Archie comics. Here's a theme of what I read this month. I read a lot of books about performance, whether you're performing on a stage, performing on Broadway. This is about performative activism. Performing for your church, that you're just a nice Christian lady, but in reality your husband was dying, you slept with his doctor, now you're pregnant with his baby, but you're telling everyone else that it's your husband's baby. Not including Archie comics, I read 20 books this month, and I have to make this quick because I have a live show in an hour for All's Well by Mona Awad, so we will just start here. You can get a lot more of my thoughts in the live show though. And I got a lot of questions from you on Instagram, so I'll pop up those as I talk about the books. All's Well is a Shakespeare-inspired descent into madness, if you will, following a woman who's dealing with chronic pain while she's chronicling her pain and her stage production of All's Well That Ends Well, but her mutinous cast wants to put on Macbeth. I don't even know what genre to put this in. It's like a dark kind of fairy tale vibe, fantasy, surrealist story. It's kind of a revenge fantasy, or what I have recently heard it referred to as a forced empathy fantasy, which I think is interesting because her pain is made known, and all of the people who didn't believe her, treat her poorly because of her pain, they learn the truth of what she's going through as she meets 3 strangers in a bar who promise her things. 3.5, again, final thoughts in that live. That rhymed. Let's see if I can find a fun way to transition from one book to the next book. Oh, actually, some of the questions that popped up. Somebody asked my favorite color palette of a cover, and it's definitely this. Somebody asked to pick like a food or beverage to represent each story. And I don't know, whatever type of like alcohol you would drink at the theater. Scotch. Scotch is my answer for that. And I also got asked what book shocked me the most with my rating, and it's this because it wasn't a 5-star and I thought it would be. And my secondary answer, which is going to transition into the next review, my most shocking rating is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, because I thought this would be like 1 or 2 stars, but it was 4. I just didn't know what to expect. A lot of really poor reviews have been coming in, so I didn't know if I would love it or hate it. And while it's by no means a favorite thriller of all time, it is one of my favorite thrillers of the year, technically. So there's that. This follows a woman, a therapist, who recently lost her husband, and now she's going to the campus of her niece because there have been like these murders happening, and she's going to support her niece whose roommate is one of the ones who died. And then she finds out that there's like this group called the Maidens. There's a teacher who she thinks is a terrible person, is probably committing these murders. Nobody seems to believe her. Nobody sees what she sees in him because he has this group of like female students who he treats differently, and it's like this private little group, and she's like, you're a terrible person. And I thought it was good. Not great. I was surprised by some things. I was entertained. As far as a comparison between this and The Silent Patient, I gave that 3 stars out of respect because I get what it was trying to do, even if it didn't work for me. I mean, they both follow therapists. They both follow like solving a crime, but not from somebody in a position who's like supposed to be solving the crime. I feel like he always has hints of like unreliable narrators, or like, is this villain really the villain? I got asked if I would recommend this for people who love If We Were Villains in the Secret History, and I wouldn't compare those. Going into it, like, that's what I thought the vibes would be too, but I would recommend this more for like fans of Wendy Walker and Karen Slaughter. Not that it's the same plot lines, but like a similar character focus, I would say. As far as the drink that this would be, it's definitely a London Fog, And I got asked which books I absolutely would recommend for October, like you have to read in this spooky season. My answer is The Maidens, and my next answer, transition to the next review, is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. The drink this feels like is also tea, but specifically cold tea, because the amount of times that cold tea is mentioned in this book is arduous to read. It's supposed to set a tone, set a vibe, and it does that. This is one of the most atmospheric books I feel like out there, which is why people love it. We're following an unnamed narrator who marries this man, moves into his manor, and the ghost of his ex-wife, or dead wife rather, is haunting them in a way. If I get asked one more time what the name of the unnamed narrator is, like, oh, I'm sorry. I mentioned it in a video. I answered some comments. I got it wrong. There is a moment where she, the main character, gets asked to be introduced as a certain name, and I cannot fathom like why. Like I understand the intent behind it, but I still don't really get it, like why she would want to be introduced that way. It's that moment on the stairs with the painting, if you know it, you know it. And I just thought it was saying something that it wasn't. So yes, she remains unnamed. I apologize for getting it wrong. I understand that this is a classic and it has its place. For me, like, it's valuable to read because I can see how some other Gothic stories that I've read have been inspired by this, but overall it was a 3-star. Like, it was just okay. Oh my god, another comment I got is like, what side of TikTok these books would live on? And I'm gonna call this home decor TikTok. I'm assuming there's a home decor TikTok. Home TikTok? Home talk? Because it's just so beautiful. This is the 80th anniversary edition. I think it's lovely, and it's the type of book that you buy and you stack up with a bunch of other white and gold books. Just me? Oh my god, not my sock peeking out of the drawer. Oh no, how do we transition from that? Okay. Anna's Secret exists on Bama Rush TikTok, sorority TikTok. I feel like they would enjoy this story of a woman persevering faced with adversity. Sorry, it's not funny. I picked this up because it's a local author to me and I read it for a video. I misread like a little bit of the synopsis, and this was a lot more focused in the church and on the Bible and Christianity than I was prepared for. It was both an entertaining and infuriating read. I pretty much covered it at the very beginning. It's a woman, husband died, sleeps with a doctor, and then spends 300 pages like regretting sleeping with that doctor and doesn't want to be with him because then her church will think that she's a terrible person even though she already had a baby with him. I got everything that I wanted out of this book as far as like local references, different restaurants and locations around town that reading them in a book is just really fun, but it didn't make up for the fact that I didn't enjoy like the message and I didn't understand the intent of the story. Oh my god, I know how to move on to the next one. This was 1 star, so we can move on to my other 1 star that I also read for the same video, and that is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert M. Piersig. Admittedly, books that were not meant for me, so I place no blame on the book itself. If this were a beverage, it would be a mezcal mule. No, I want to explain myself. And the side of TikTok that it's on is, I don't know. What is the side of TikTok that's about like 50-year-old dads who read their first philosophy book and then their lives are just like changed forever? Secrets of the Universe talk. Does that exist? This is about a man who goes on a road trip with his son and has a lot of things to say about how to live a better life, but more so like how to think better. Not how to live better, but how to think better. It's impacted millions, so who am I to say anything? Well, how do you go from here? Another book that has impacted many because it was featured on a list of thrillers that you have to read. That's Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This is definitely on true crime TikTok. So is this. Let me talk about these together because they're actually similar in a lot of ways. They're on Crime Talk. These are both YA thrillers with an academic setting. They're set at school and they follow characters. I guess if they were drinks, they would both be like coffees because we're following characters who are very I don't know, keen learners. I never use the word keen. They are passionate students. They are highly caffeinated students. They're top of class students. Maybe a pumpkin spice latte, just because academic books I always associate with fall, and a pumpkin spice latte is just like the most iconic beverage of the season. This one is more thriller, this one is more mystery, but if you enjoyed one, I would recommend the other. So this is a good like pairing, I feel. I gave this one a 3-star and this one a 4-star. It just has a generally more dynamic, interesting cast of characters. The situations are more high stakes, and I had a much more like emotional reaction to it. This book made me so angry as intended. With that said though, this is a series. No, I don't plan to continue. But maybe if I read more, like I would get that as well. Like more characters, more development, more plot. And they both have a lot of like historical references relating to the mystery. This one's a little more like unknown as you get into it, but basically there are these two characters who get treated more and more poorly throughout the book, and you're trying to figure out like why. Students are getting these like threatening text messages, and in this one, they're getting these like riddles because there was this kidnapping like, I don't know, 100 years ago or something. And we have characters who are just like trying to figure it all out. So transitioning from a series I won't continue in, I'll go to a series I will continue in. I read Mr. Impossible by Maggie Stiefvater this month, which is the second book in the Dreamers trilogy, the first one being Call Down the Hawk, which I gave 4 stars. This book I gave 3 stars. There's a lot of things I could say about this book. There's a lot of things I can't say about this book because it would spoil like the entire Raven cycle. But as far as where this ranks in the entire cycle, obviously it's at the bottom because all of these were 5 stars and then a couple 4 stars, and now we're at 3 stars. You know, maybe it suffers from middle book syndrome and the trilogy as a whole will be great. But the thing that I struggle with fantasy series a lot, often, in general, is when they start to get more broad. I love like small town, isolated, interpersonal fantasy, and when it starts to get like global and impacting like tons and tons of communities, and like there's a portion that I'm sure so many people enjoy where it's like, oh, it's not just this group of people, like it's this and this and it's all tied together, and that's so cool. I hate that. I do like the characters. It's just like writing a spin-off series in general is ambitious. I definitely give props to like going for it and doing it, but when the first series has such a strong group of characters and like they all just perfectly balance each other out and play off of each other, it's hard to introduce an entire new group. My biggest issue with this and why I call it middle book syndrome is like not enough really happens. You can tell that she's building to a final book that like has a lot of answers, and that's great. But I have the same like, you have the same question, or at least I did. In my review of this, I talked about how like at the end I was expecting a reveal because it's building and building to like a certain character being a certain something or someone, and I was waiting for it, and I was really disappointed by the ending that it didn't give you the satisfaction of that reveal. But then it was the entire book this time too that did the same thing with the same character, and then it was like the reveal was at the very end, and like I knew what the reveal was gonna be 50 pages into this one, so like waiting for that and that being like the big thing was just a real letdown. With that said, a 3 is a fine rating. I love the Lynch brothers. This series makes you fall in love with Declan. It makes you fall in love with Matthew if you hadn't already, which is impossible. But I don't know, I feel like I actually enjoy Ronan as a side character than as the main focus. It just didn't do enough for me, but I will continue. And no, I don't feel any differently about the title and the cover. It's still awful. Ooh, here's how we'll transition. That book's about Ronan. This book's about Roman. So Roman and Jewel is another Shakespeare-inspired story. It's a Broadway stage production of Romeo and Juliet turned into Roman and Jewel. We're following like 2 main characters. In real life, their names are Jersey and, oh yeah, Zeppelin. And they're both in this play. They're both new to Broadway. They're both new to the attention that comes along with that. And they're also like falling for each other, but there's like a love triangle. It's a very like over the top YA contemporary, if you're into that sort of thing. I give it 4 stars. I don't know if I said that. And the other woman in the picture is the one who's actually cast as Jewel. And she is famous, and that's part of why she got the role, and there's a lot of commentary around that. It's super interesting. If I were to put this on a side of TikTok, it'd be Couch Guy TikTok. No doubt about it. Oh, another one I got was to talk about the pitch versus the accuracy of the story. And I love that because I would actually say a good amount of these didn't meet my expectations. Not as far as like how good they are, but even what the actual story revolves around. So this, I would say, is the most accurate synopsis that I've read. And another one that would qualify for that is Allies. This says, real talk about showing up, screwing up, and trying again. And you know what? That's the perfect explanation for what this is. It's exactly what it gives you. And this is my highest rating of the month. I can't think of any reason to give it less than 5 stars, so I'm giving it 5 stars. It's intended for a YA audience, but I do think it has mass appeal. Like, as a 30-year-old, I still enjoyed this. I think it gives you, like, conversation points and explains certain phrases that you may not fully understand, but not in a way that's like obnoxious or dumbed down, but just like gives stories from all of these authors of their real lives, of when they needed to be an ally to someone else, when someone was an ally to them, when they witnessed something, just like general conversations and experiences from their own lives and how it impacted their journey of allyship, and lots of like different tips and tricks and explanations of what an ally, what being a true ally really means. If you are an adult who has a preteen or teen in your life, and like you grew up reading something like Chicken Soup for the Soul, this is something that I would recommend that like gives you what you might have gotten from that. It's real stories and real advice. It's a lot more hard hitting, I'm sure, than, well, I don't know, some Chicken Soup for the Soul was intense. But as far as being asked like what book I wish I could put in my younger self's hands, this would definitely be it. I also got asked my favorites in here. So my favorites are The Unsafe Space by Adiba Jagadar, which talks about her experience with feminism and people who call themselves feminists, but how like not inclusive they have been to her. Another one of my favorites is From Author to Ally to Co-Conspirator by I.W. Gregario, which chronicles writing none of the above, which is a YA story about an intersex teen, which you might have heard of or read. And this whole thing talks about how that's what she thought allyship looked like, until realizing that it was about like passing the mic and making space for other people to tell their own stories. And then my other favorite one was Did You Know Gandhi Was Racist by Sharon Dhaliwal, which covered a lot of things like navigating certain conversations, to judgment, to like self-reflection, to emotional labor. And I would recommend this to everyone. I think everyone could get something out of this. Another recommendation, what would I recommend my mom? Out of all of these, the only one I can think of would be The Strange Thing We Become and Other Dark Tales by Eric LaRocca. Oh, also these have in common that I was sent them. So thank you very much to publishers, authors for that. Since my mom loves short horror like I do, I would recommend this. I gave it 4 stars last month. I read Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, which is a short piece of horror, and a lot of things in here like really tie into that. Like you can tell it's written by the same person. There are themes of like internet, chat room, pen pals, and a lot of like body part references, like losing fingers and having your fingers taken, and some very like unsettling situations. My favorites in here were the very first one, You Follow Wherever They Go. And then I want to say it was the longest one in here, You're Not Supposed to Be Here. It's the type of story that has been told before. It's like a cyclical experience, but I've never heard it told in this way, and it was scary. So yeah, highly recommend that if you like that sort of thing. What other questions were there? Oh, if you had to spill coffee on one of these books, which would you be least sad about? I guess I have to say Anna's Secret, even though I spent a good amount of money on it. And then which one would you throw off a hot air balloon is a lovely reference to Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. But like, I can't because it's a library book. But that's obviously my answer. Which book best matches my new duvet cover? That's a great question. that's this. Maybe Tuck Everlasting. Yeah, that's my answer. So lastly, I have this little stack of books that I reread for 9th grade. I'm not going to go through them because I talked about them at length here. I also didn't read them. Tuck Everlasting, I still recommend. I think it holds up. I got asked if The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants holds up, and I really do think it does. There are certain things that I took issue with for sure that's just a product of their time, but I actually think I might complete the series. I read a lot of books related to TV shows. Clueless, the series, wouldn't recommend. Alex Mack, the series, probably not, but I would highly recommend like buying these for your future children. I don't know, but like Sabrina, the series, and Sister Sister, I loved rewatching the shows and getting these stories. They were fantastic. And then lastly, I read Monster, reread Monster, the book and the graphic novel, which is about incarceration and being convicted of a crime. I highly recommend the graphic novel. If you didn't read this and you want to experience the story, I think the graphic novel, since I know a lot of people love graphic novels, highly recommend it. I also watched the movie. However you want to consume that story, I really think it's a good one, and the movie is really good. And that's everything that I read. I didn't want to make the pile any bigger because then it might fall on me. But that is it for my September wrap up. Sorry, it's a little late. I'm now off to my live show. If you haven't already watched it, I would love you to. And I'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.